In a shocking update, the FBI issues a warning to California about a potential Iranian drone threat.
Keeping you informed and engaged, now more than ever. This is Sekulow. We want to hear from you. Share and post your comments or call 1-800-684-3110. And now your host, Logan Sekulow.
Welcome to Sekulow. It's Thursday. I'm back in the saddle again, as they say.
People missed
Well,
you, Logan.
I know. I was all over the chat yesterday.
I saw that.
I was actually in the air talking to people on a flight. I was getting in the comments. It was a lot of fun.
Mixing it up.
I was in New York City, which we could talk about. Obviously, New York City, big in the news due to potential terror attacks and threats, and certainly it was the talk of the town. Can discuss that as well. But, of course, the big news that came out is that there was issued a warning from the FBI to California. And Rick Riddell's going to be joining us a little bit later. Of course, a huge part of California culture. We'll hear from Rick about this, saying that Iran attacks, drone attacks, could be on the way to California and to, I guess, watch out. I mean, that is sure, you want people to be prepared, but I don't even know what you do in this situation, but let's go through a bit of what the actual warning is.
Right. So this wasn't like a public notice or a public memo like we've seen where there have been, a bunch of different warnings from State Department and law enforcement federally of, be vigilant if you're traveling, if you are abroad, things like that. But this was specifically a warning sent to California law enforcement, to police departments. The LA Police Department also responded to this. The governor himself actually acknowledged this, that they've been in communication. But this goes back from intelligence predating the attacks back at the end of February, that they got intelligence that Iran would be planning to retaliate against the United States via drone attacks on the West Coast. That could include both the homeland itself, as well as vehicles and vessels off the coast of California. And so they were taking this serious enough that they went to law enforcement to start and coordinate and create a plan to try and defend against retaliatory unmanned drone attacks on the U.S. homeland.
I want to actually read you the alert that came through, and this was verified from many different news sources. They said, we recently acquired information that as of early February 2026, Iran allegedly aspired to conduct a surprise attack using unmanned aerial vehicles, again, that'd be like drones, from an unidentified vessel off the coast of the United States homeland, specifically against unspecified targets in California. In the event that the U.S. conducted strikes against Iran. According to the alert, also said we have no additional information on the timing, method, target, or perpetrators of this alleged attack. And again, that is the words that were coming from the FBI, like you said, to the police departments to let them know that this is something that has been going and ongoing. As obviously now we are well into, was this week 3?
That Saturday will be the second full week. Isn't that crazy?
Yeah.
It feels like it has been a long time.
Yeah, second full week will wrap up this weekend. So of this, whatever you want to call it, war, quote unquote, not war in Iran. I want to get your thoughts on this. This has been, look, this is where we live a little isolated. We do start putting the actual threats aside of what's actually happening. And look, some of this happened, again, while I was in New York City. There was a big potential attack that happened really twice. There was 2 or 3 different things that occurred. All seem to be linked in some ways. We're going to discuss that coming up, and all linked to the mayor and the mayor's property there in New York City. So I want to hear from you. What are your thoughts on this when we start warning threats on American homeland? Does it make you change your thoughts on this war? 1-800-684-3110. We are, speaking of the ACLJ's work around the world, and we're going to be joined by Cece Heil in a little bit to talk about what's going on in Nigeria, because we can't forget about there are Christians everywhere. There are people everywhere who are being persecuted for their faith. We got to make sure we represent them. And part of this special week that we have here, 7 days of global impact, we want you to be a part of it right now. Have your gift doubled today. Show that you want to support the work that is going on, not just only within our country. Of course, it helps all the work of the ACLJ, but really puts a spotlight onto the global work of the ACLJ, which is incredible. It's one of the things that I really enjoy when I talk about our work here. So once you go to aclj.org to double your impact today, double, dollar for dollar. Have your gifts doubled at aclj.org/global or scan the QR code.
tonight with the war against Iran in its 12th day, a new warning about how Iran may retaliate.
The FBI recently alerted California police departments Iran aspires to conduct a surprise attack against unspecified targets in California using drones.
There was a bulletin issued a week ago, but it was not released publicly at first.
The alert, reviewed by ABC News, says the drones would come from an unidentified vessel off the coast of the United States homeland.
Iran's larger drones have a range of over 1,200 miles, meaning it could hit Los Angeles if it was launched from a ship anywhere in this area on the map.
The alert is cautionary. There is no information about Iran's aspirational timing or targets.
And tonight, the Michigan-based medical equipment company Stryker says it was hit by a cyber attack.
Cybersecurity researchers say a hacking group linked to Iran has claimed responsibility for that attack. This comes amid a Homeland Security funding fight here in Washington that's dragged on for almost a month now. It means nearly 2/3 of the department's cyber defense officials are furloughed and off the job.
If they're trying to launch vertical launch mechanisms off of small boats off the coast of California, it's going to be very easy to find and very easy to kill. Whether these are smaller drones like you see in Ukraine coming out of Mexico, there's certain things you can do against that, but the really small ones like FPV drones that we make and other drones you see in Ukraine are going to be very hard to battle because they're just so quick, small, and they're off-the-shelf technology, so they could be anywhere inside of California already.
Because of where they are in this fight, it's more likely that Iran would carry out something like this or a terrorist attack because they don't have the ability to reach out to us right now in any other fashion. So that's going to be what they're striving for. So I believe the FBI is going to be taking this very seriously.
Sekulow. Phone lines are open for you at 1-800-684-3110 as part of our Global Impact Week. 7 days of global impact. When you support the work of the ACLJ right now, all donations are doubled. Now, this is a very interesting time. We planned this Global Impact Week months ago when we were working on what our month of March was going to look like. Of course, none of us were sure or thought there would be a chance that we would essentially be in the middle of a war right now that does seem to be spanning the globe in many different ways. Whether that is obviously the Middle East, all the different Middle Eastern countries that have had to get involved, and now threats to America specifically as the FBI warned that there may be drone attacks within our country, within California. So as things escalate, I wanted to get your thoughts on that. But the work of the ACLJ is strong. We are working around the world because of moments like this. So I want you to know that when you support, even when you're just watching this show and you're listening, that we are engaged on all of these topics. Like I said, I was in New York City just yesterday. And during my time there obviously was a lot of talk on the streets because there was an ISIS-inspired attack that occurred with a bomb that was essentially lit and thrown into a protesting crowd and also in front of Gracie Mansion, in front of the governor's home. Or not the governor's home, sorry, the mayor's home. The bomb thankfully did not go off, but it was not a dummy. They did a research on it. It had all the parts that would have done it. It just
was assembled incorrectly.
Thank God. Thank God that there were people who handled it, and a great job also at the NYPD for handling a lot of that situation. It changed the tone dramatically of what was going on in New York City. The first day we were there, it was incredibly quiet. And I mean, not just a low amount of people. You could just have this, there was a hush over the streets. People were paying attention closer to what was going on around them. They were not focused on having discussions or talking or whatever it may be. It felt like everyone's guard was up. Now, quickly, New Yorkers adjust. The next day, it felt like kind of things went back to normal. But in that time, there was another threat while we were there. And part of the park that we were near got evacuated just a few minutes after we had left. Again, that one ended up, I believe, being nothing. But they are on high alert in these cities. And it's due to extremism. It is due to some of the similar threats that are going on. It is when they mentioned ISIS, it is a sign of those kind of attacks where you have people who are Americans who get radicalized very quickly and within a few months are planning attacks in major cities.
That's right, Logan. And when you also look at this warning that the FBI gave to law enforcement in California that they are concerned about, based off of intelligence, that Iran may want to conduct unmanned drone attacks on the homeland or on vessels that are around the coast of California, on the west coast of the United States. This wasn't a public message. This wasn't something that went out like a bulletin, like all Americans be on alert. This was specifically to law enforcement.
Internal.
They believed that it was credible. They believed that it should be something that they should work together on and be on high alert. But it also dovetails with the alert that we received weeks ago at the beginning of this, where they said they believe they've intercepted communications from Iran that could have gone out to alert cells that could be around the world to conduct attacks. We know that the medical device company, Stryker, they make hospital beds. They make all sorts of things for the healthcare industry. They were hit with a cyber attack. It was a ransomware-style attack that they believe originated from Iran, but with no payoff. It wasn't the ransomware where they extort you, you give money, and then they open back up your systems. It was just specifically to shut down the company. These are things they're also concerned about. This is the layer in this conflict that Americans are going to be facing, whether it be cyber attacks on companies, on infrastructure, that we know that the administration and the FBI, Department of Homeland Security, as well as the military are monitoring. But that is where the vigilance of the government and working together with the states has to come through. The other side of this, the Department of Homeland Security remains defunded at the hands of the Democrats in Congress. In the Senate today, they will be debating a funding package. The Democrats thus far have not shown any sort of movement that they are willing to reopen the Department of Homeland Security. You are seeing airlines being strained already, the TSA. That's one part of it. But when you start to talk about defense against things like this, drone attacks, you need all hands on deck approach from the government. And if people are not getting paid, that adds to another stressor on these people that work for our government at a time of heightened alert.
Yeah, and as you travel right now, you'll start seeing advertisements in many ways saying to end this shutdown. It has become a constant, almost marketing tool. And that tool right now specifically says, because it's obviously being run by the current administration, says, essentially call your Democrats and tell them to end the shutdown. This is a Democrat shutdown. That's become the messaging point, even coming from things like the TSA. They are telling the TSA agents, if people ask about it, blame them. Now, there are some airports that have tried to circumvent this. They've tried to fight back. I know some have said, hey, we don't listen to the warnings. We're still operating just fine. But that secretly, but not secretly, behind the scenes, it's just simply not the case. Now, because of everything that's happening around the world, it feels like the shutdown part has gotten swept under the rug, almost like we've forgotten about it. Because at the time we're talking now, I see more about gas prices. I see more about, obviously, what's going on in Iran, not unjustifiably. But when there is still this big portion of the government shut down, and it happens to be the Department of Homeland Security.
Well, and it shows how much of an unserious group the Democrats in Congress are. Because at the same time, they're trying to say this is such a dangerous war. It's going to risk attacks on Americans, even here at home, end the illegal war. You're even seeing this language from Gavin Newsom himself. But at the same time, he's admitting that this communication with the FBI is happening, a very serious and credible issue against the homeland. And the fact that the Department of Homeland Security is one of the newer executive agencies.
Yeah,
it was created after 9/11 to try and stop future 9/11s, future terrorist attacks on the homeland. And when we are in the middle of this, if they are saying it's reckless because it could be dangerous to Americans, but at the same time, they will not even try and come together and find a way forward on funding of Department of Homeland Security, they already have seen their number one target of a cabinet member, Kristi Noem, be moved to a new job. The fact that they can't take a victory lap there for the betterment of the people of the United States and say, look, we did what we wanted, move on. I will say go for it. Use that. Make that your spin and that you won. But get this agency back open for the good of the people. Once again, we also go back to that issue where, remember, they shut down the airport. I believe it was in El Paso because of the drone issue. And that was cartel drones. They said it later turned out that the military and Department of Homeland Security were testing new anti-drone technology, that the FAA wasn't necessarily privy to this information. They know that a real threat from cartels exists at the southern border. So much so they have to test new technology on this. You know that Iran and their proxies are good buddies. They were good buddies with Venezuela. Hezbollah would train on the islands that are owned by Venezuela. We know that Cuba has a relationship with Iran. We know that Central American countries have these relationships. I would not doubt if the Iranians, we know they've exploited the southern border through the cartel's movements of people. If their threat could not necessarily be just a sea-based threat, but also a southern border-based threat. And when you've seen all that happened under previous administration to weaken the security of this nation, that fortunately has been pushed back against. But the damage is done. These are real threats. And I feel like it's incumbent upon the Democrats in the Senate and in the House to move forward a funding package along with their colleagues on the other side of the aisle to get the Department of Homeland Security back open during this conflict.
Yeah, and look, I think it needs to happen. Hopefully that will happen shortly. Is there a timeline for when they think the vote may happen?
Well, today they're discussing and debating the package. It's not expected to move forward.
Yeah, so it's meaningless at this point. Yeah, we got to demand better. Sadly, this stuff happens over and over again. And again, you get distracted. They said there may be a test vote today, but who knows where that will end up. It sounds like we know where it's going to end up. Phone lines are open for you right now, 1-800-684-3110, 1-800-684-3110. Because when we get back, we are going to hear from Cece Heil, who's going to be joining us, senior attorney here at the ACLJ. And I want you to see a special presentation we have. Again, this is 7 Days of Global Impact. Very special week dedicated to our work all over the world, whether it's the ECLJ, our European Center, whether it's the work of the UN, our ACLJ Jerusalem. All over the world, the ACLJ is hard at work. So don't think we are just within these borders. The ACLJ has always fought for those all over the world, especially Christians that are in need, Jewish people that are in need. And I want to hear from you too, though. So scan your QR code if you see it right now. And get on hold, though, because in the back half of the show, I'm going to take a lot of calls if I can. 1-800-684-3110. There's about 4 lines open right now. So if you've ever wanted to be on the air, it's a great time to call. 1-800-684-3110. Again, I encourage you. If you're thinking about giving to the ACLJ, this is the month to do it. And if you love what's going on around the world, you want to be a part of it, this is the time.
35 on average Christians are killed a day in Nigeria by Islamic extremist groups.
They've killed over 100,000 since 2009. They've burned 18,000 churches. They are literally attempting to wipe out the Christian population of an entire country.
We met at the White House to discuss what the president and the executive branch can do on the international front. And we said, Nigeria, put it back on the CPC, countries of particular concern list. That was on a Wednesday. And that Friday, President Trump sent the message out that Nigeria would be added to the countries of particular concern list. And a few days later wrote that if Nigeria doesn't get it together, we're going to get it together for them and protect these Christians. The ACLJ is now fighting at the UN to stop this massacre, but we need your voice. You can stand with the ACLJ and make a global impact. Go to aclj.org/global.
The ACLJ's work at the UN Human Rights Council is extremely important. The Human Rights Council is the entity within the United Nations body that is responsible for promoting and protecting all human rights. We want to make sure we are there speaking up for the victims of religious persecution who are often dismissed and overlooked. Ministry of Presence is actually a very effective tool when fighting for justice. Through our European Center for Law and Justice, which is an NGO, we participate in each session, drafting written submissions and delivering oral interventions covering the most egregious human rights and religious liberty violations. We are committed to defending religious liberty and human rights worldwide, and we will continue to be actively engaged at the UN Human Rights Council and with its subsidiaries every chance we get.
Right now, you can make a global impact. Go to aclj.org/global to have your tax-deductible gift doubled today.
Welcome back to Sekulow. It is Global Impact Week, 7 days of Global Impact. We talk about the work of the ACLJ around the world, and I want you to be a part of it right now. So scan that QR code, and we're about to show you a very special video presentation we want to set up, and Cece Heil, senior attorney here at the ACLJ, is joining us in studio. But Will, why don't you set up what we're about to see?
Exactly. So when we have these special weeks, one thing we want to do is showcase a lot of the work that the ACLJ legal team, global affairs team, the work that they're doing all the time and have been doing for a very long time, even when it's not in the news. Sometimes we see it pop in the news and we can showcase the work, but we also want to make sure you don't forget the impact you're having. One of those topics is the plight of Christians in Nigeria. It is something we've worked on for close to 16 years, and it was in the news a few months ago. But we still work on that. So I want to show you this video presentation, and then we're going to talk to Cece Heil about this work and how your impact is making a difference in the world.
They're killing record numbers of Christians in Nigeria.
They are literally attempting to wipe out the Christian population of an entire country.
69% of all Christians killed for their faith around the world last year were murdered in that country.
Today we speak of blood. We speak of the blood that still cries from Nigerian soil.
Since 2009, 125,000 Christians have been killed in Nigeria, including 600 clerics. 19,000 churches have been destroyed, 1,100 Christian communities displaced.
What you have is a terrorist organization, particularly in the north in Nigeria, Boko Haram, that is literally burning churches, massacring people, torturing people, running them out of their homes.
A pastor and his worshipers are in the middle of prayer when all of a sudden, the sound of gunshots sends them running for cover. Seconds later, the gunmen are inside. Officials later say at least 2 people were killed and others were kidnapped.
The numbers are staggering. Just this year, extremist groups have killed more than 600 Christians and others and kidnapped over 1,000. So anybody who supports and helps Christians, they're killing them too.
The ACLJ recently joined a new coalition partner, CPAC, the American Conservative Union. I think a lot of people know about the big CPAC events. And we talked about this issue of Christian persecution worldwide. The first meeting at the White House was about, kind of what's next on how the president and the executive branch can do on the international front. And I remember in that meeting, Matt Schlapp looked over at me and kind of said, "Hey, Jordan, what's, number one on the agenda?" And we said Nigeria put back on the CPC, countries of particular concern list.
We sent this letter to the new Secretary of State, Marco Rubio, asking for Nigeria to be redesignated as a country of particular concern. And over the weekend, on Friday evening, President Trump did just that.
The actual official statement that came out from President Trump on Truth Social: Christianity is facing an existential threat in Nigeria. Thousands of Christians are being killed. Radical Islamists are responsible for this mass slaughter. I'm hereby making Nigeria a country of particular concern. That was in all caps.
So by putting them on the list of countries of particular concern, that means they are now being watched very closely by various departments of the U.S. government.
We've been doing this since 2010. December of 2010 was, I think, one of the first attacks we brought to the European Union before their eyes in January of 2011. And so we've been fighting for this, and that shows you the ACLJ, we will not stop fighting until we see justice. And with the CPC designation, I think we're on that path.
Cece, as we saw in that video, one, the long work that we have put into this, the successes we've had to raise this issue, but we know that the work is not done. The ongoing persecution of Christians continues, and even with everything else in the world going on, our work continues on these issues that may not be in the mainstream news. This is a topic I never thought would be in the mainstream news, but we continue to fight for it. We did get some good coverage, so the awareness is much broader now, but our work continues on this.
Yeah, it does. And like you just heard, it has been for a long time, almost 16 years. We have continuously brought up the issue that more Christians are killed, slaughtered, murdered for their faith in Nigeria than all other countries combined. In fact, on average,
There are 32 Christians killed for their faith every single day in Nigeria. That is one every hour, and for 8 hours a day, that's 2 every hour. So that is ridiculous, and it's so sad that it's taken this long to bring it to the attention of the world, because literally Christians are trying to be eliminated in Nigeria, and we have fought this battle for almost 16 years, and we won't stop.
Maybe we should explain what fighting the battle really means. I know people who just saw the video, they may be a better understanding, but there's a lot of people who just listen as well. Maybe they weren't sure exactly what they were hearing with a montage of clips.
Right.
When the ACLJ, we have 7 days of global impact. We're not only showcasing our work around the country, we're also showcasing our work around the world. People hear about Nigeria. They may have a heart for it, but they have no idea how to even respond or how anyone could respond.
Right. So our actions that we take, a lot of at the United Nations, we do oral interventions, we do written submissions, we do side events showing the United Nations, all the 193 member states, look, this is what's going on in Nigeria, and the UN needs to step in and hold Nigeria accountable for this. So bringing it to the world's attention, we've written letters to the Nigerian government, of course, our government, and I know Secretary Pompeo has even indicated that we were very critical in getting Nigeria on the countries of particular concern list. That was during the first Trump administration. And of course, now, as you heard from Jordan and I were at the White House meeting and asking for Nigeria to be put back on the countries of particular concern list. And a day and a half later, the president did that.
One of the first things Secretary of State Anthony Blinken did after he was brought in by Joe Biden was take Nigeria off that list.
Yes.
When you see what's happening, you hear those stats that how many Christians are killed a day. That should be global outrage. But the Biden administration had different plans, and one of the first things they did was take them off the countries of particular concern list. We are thankful that the Trump administration this time around has put them back on that list. But also, we talk about our work with the UN, with the U.S. government, directly going to the government of Nigeria, saying protect your population. We also have our ACLJ Jerusalem office. You know, another country that, and I know this may not be popular within certain podcasters that say that Israel hates Christians. Another country that is working to support the persecuted Christian population in Nigeria is Israel. And Jeff Balaban has meetings about that in Jerusalem with members of the Israeli government. So our impact on this issue isn't in just one area of we can go to members of Congress or we can go to the State Department. It is far and wide the reach of the ACLJ. When we get behind an issue, we go at it from every angle we can to make a difference.
That's right. And the ACLJ, again, we are showcasing, celebrating 7 days of global impact here during your Double Your Impact month. And I want you to do it right now as we head to a break. And if you don't get the rest of the show, by the way, if you're listening on terrestrial radio or some of the places that don't carry the full hour, find us online, aclj.org, however you get your podcasts. We're there live 12 to 1 p.m. Eastern time and, of course, archived. Again, however you get your podcasts, we are there. But right now, I want you to do me a favor. Consider supporting the work of the ACLJ during these 7 days of global impact at aclj.org. Back in less than a minute.
As international events unfold, the ACLJ has a long-established presence where it matters, and we are making an impact. This week, we're highlighting that impact with 7 days of global impact. We are redoubling the ACLJ's international work, speaking for those who don't have a voice. In days, we will be delivering an oral intervention at the UN on the dire plight of Iran's Christians. We've recently filed written submissions on Iran, Nigeria, North Korea, Somalia, and Cuba at the UN Human Rights Council. In Pakistan, we are currently defending 4 Christians who are facing execution for their faith. We're actively defending Israel before the UN and the ICC as lawfare ramps up against our ally. Together, we can truly make a global impact. Have your tax-deductible donation doubled today at aclj.org/global.
Keeping you informed and engaged. now more than ever. This is Sekulow. And now your host, Logan Sekulow.
Welcome to Sekulow. We do have some phone lines open at 1-800-684-3110. Second half hour of the show coming at you now. Rick Grenell is going to be joining us next as the FBI has warned that Iran may be aspiring to attack California with drone operations. Again, this sounds like something that you would not plan for, but this is the reality of the world we're living in right now. So if you're in California, I want to hear from you. What are your thoughts now? 1-800-684-3110. Rick Grenell, who spends a good portion of his time, and definitely is a Californian, will be giving us his thoughts coming up. We do have a lot of calls coming in. We still have a few lines open, as I said, 1-800-684-3110. But I want to take some calls up front. Let's go up to Ronald, who is calling from South Carolina, watching on Rumble. Go ahead.
Yes, thanks for taking my call. I was wondering why the Democrats have not done the math and seeing that their shutdown is exposing American citizens in this country to foreign attack.
Well, I mean, I don't have an answer why they haven't figured that out. I think they still probably are going based off poll numbers that are probably dated at this point that show the Department of Homeland Security is closely associated with ICE because it's the agency that is over ICE. And therefore, their constituents in the midterms are motivated to vote because of the entire ICE story. I think that is what you are seeing from the Democrats. It's just pure political calculus. But you know what else is under the Department of Homeland Security? The Coast Guard, TSA, things that protect the American public every single day, not just immigration enforcement, Homeland Security. And Ronald, I'm there with you. I don't know how, and I expect Republicans to be running ads against Democrats saying during a time of conflict, they would have preferred to score political points by keeping the Homeland Security Agency shut down. I expect to see those ads. If they don't, and don't message them properly, then they probably shouldn't get another term in office if you're a Republican, or should not win, because it should be the easiest and truthful political attack on an opponent of saying, what are you doing?
Yeah, look, I think the news cycle is largely to blame for this. If there was more media outrage, of course you'd have more people concerned about the government shutdown. But because when you have a partial government shutdown, it is actually felt. This is only felt rightly right now to the civilians, for people that are traveling, air travel, that kind of thing. And that's probably a small percentage when it comes to the full scope of the country. So right now, do you even hear about it? Is the shutdown even part of the news cycle? The only time I actually hear about the shutdown is when places like the TSA or when the president or our organizations put out statements saying in this shutdown, in the Democrat shutdown. You see that? There is a bit of that when you do have that in the Democrat shutdown where it becomes politicized. Not that it's not. It clearly is politicized. The whole thing is political. But then you have no one on the left willing to post about it or talk about it or even talk about it on the news. And you have the right trying to make some headway, but really their focus is on right now what's going on in Iran. So I understand that that is what's happening. We do know right now the White House has pushed back a little bit on that Iranian drone attack. I'll get whatever the statement is. And also, Gavin Newsom just put out a statement as well. If we could pull both of those, that would be excellent, because I do want to make sure we're giving you up-to-date information on that, the drone threat to the state of California. Before we even get to Rick Grenell, I'd love to have that. When we get back, though, we will hear from Rick Grenell again. He's been a member of the ACLJ team and also a member of the administration off and on for the entire run for both eras of the Trump world. He gives great, invaluable, worldwide knowledge of what's happening. And when we're talking about worldwide, I understand the work of the ACLJ. Sometimes you think of it as the kid with his Bible who can't go to school with his Bible or those kind of issues. And sure, those are still happening, and we talk about them all the time. But over the last 25 or so years, we have expanded our global reach so significantly. And sometimes it's hard for me to translate that to an American audience. But understand there are Christians being persecuted, Jewish people being persecuted, Muslim people being persecuted for their faith all over the world, from whether it's dictatorships or their own governments that want to censor them, censor speech. And a lot of times, which leads to grave consequences in a lot of these places. That's why the ACLJ is there. In places you know, and places you'll never know. So support the work of the ACLJ right now during Global Impact Week.
We have some breaking news. Just moments ago, Iran's new supreme leader released his first public statement since being appointed.
On Iranian state media, a presenter read a new statement from Iran's new supreme leader, Mojtaba Khamenei.
The written message says the Strait of Hormuz will remain closed and calls for Iran's Gulf neighbors to shut down U.S. bases.
He also said there could be a new fronts opening up in this war. Unclear what he means by that.
He calls on unity among the people of Iran and participation in Quds Day. Now, Quds is the Arabic word for Jerusalem, and this day normally falls on the last Friday of Ramadan. And so, if my math is correct here, that would be March 20th of this year, the last Friday of Ramadan, when traditionally we have seen Iranian proxies like Hamas and Hezbollah launch attacks and also large demonstrations in the region. And so this is certainly something to look out for in the days ahead.
He's reportedly been recovering at a hospital, according to sources, where he suffered injuries, according to those sources, to his legs. He was injured in the same airstrike that killed his father and other family members. So it is notable that while we have heard a message from the new Ayatollah, we have not seen or heard his voice.
I'm sure we'll find out later. I mean, whether there actually is any proof of life. This could have been something that was drawn up by the Revolutionary Guard. There are so many questions around his well-being, questions around his appointment, actually, Supreme Leader, who was a close ally with the Revolutionary Guard, and they've pushed him to be the supreme leader.
As we look forward here, though, it will be interesting to see if and when we actually see Mojtaba Khamenei. We've not yet seen him. Of course, there have been posters and images circulating in the Iranian capital of Tehran, but this statement today, where he speaks about the ongoing war against the United States and Israel, was made through a presenter on state media.
Welcome back to Sekulow. Rick Brunell's joining us right now. And of course, we've been covering, it's changed actually in the last few minutes even, the potential threat that the FBI had warned, according to reports, to the state of California with drone attacks coming from Iran. Now, Carolyn Levitt just responded very directly to this. And before we get to you, Rick, I want to make sure that we're all up to date, because I want to make sure the American people understand that we're not just sensationalizing. This has been the big news all morning. It has been something we've been talking about really for the last 24 hours.
Right. Yeah. So the story came out last evening where there was a...
Last evening.
I like that. A report from ABC was the first that had it, that the FBI had warned local law enforcement in California of specifically a threat of drone attacks as retaliation from Iran. Now, even in that report, it says that there's not a specific target listed. They didn't have timing, method, or target, or the perpetrators of the attack, but it was an email that went out from the FBI to local law enforcement. The local law enforcement confirmed it. Governor Newsom confirmed that they had it, but also said there's not a specific imminent threat. All this while the Department of Homeland Security remains shut down by the Democrats. But this is what's new. This is from Carolyn Levitt, who the White House did not respond to comment last night, but she has put out a post on X that says, this post and story should be immediately retracted by ABC News for providing false information to intentionally alarm the American people. They wrote this based off one email that was sent to local law enforcement in California about a single unverified tip. The email even states the tip was based off unverified intelligence, yet ABC News left out this critical fact in their story. Why? To be clear, no such threat from Iran exists to our homeland, and it never did. Rick, this is one, there's a lot of reporting, and there's another story that's interesting I want to get your take on. But what's your take on this? One, at a time where we are seeing the threat and bulletins go out about potential communications outside of Iran to sleeper cells and things of that nature. This threat seemed in line with something like that, but now the White House is pushing back that this is not something that we should be necessarily concerned with.
Well, first of all, I love the fact that the White House is leaning forward and being very transparent. We have lived through so many intelligence leaks that are partially true or somewhat true or completely false. And we've seen that with the Russian collusion. We've seen that with Hunter Biden's laptop. And so when we get partial intelligence and then anonymous people making these sweeping changes and judgments about something, I like the fact that the government comes out and says, this is overplayed, this isn't true, and we should all listen to it, because this is what the media does. And if anyone knows this, it's the Trump administration, right? We've been through this so many times. I can tell you, as former director of national intelligence, I had to watch as the media would get things wrong. Let me give you another example. You remember we spent a long time fighting in the media that there was this report that CNN pushed that Kim Jong-un was brain dead. And we saw that for days on end. And the reality is it wasn't true. It was taken from someone saw a conversation about it and then pretended like they had information that it was true. It wasn't true. And yet the news, this false news, fake news went around the world for so long. The correction was only like 2 hours long. And so people didn't even know that this was fake news 3 or 4 days later. And this is a typical pattern of what we see from the media. Very irresponsible, anonymous sources, and they pretend like they have a little piece of it and they know the whole story, and they don't.
Rick, I think what's also interesting about this, and to kind of piggyback off of what you were saying there with their transparency, one, I think also people should be careful. There are other bulletins that have gone out from the State Department, from Homeland Security, et cetera, that say Americans should be careful because an American is a target. Like Iran does want.
I was in New York 2 days ago. The whole time there were actual attacks happening.
And this is specifically about this report about a drone strike on the U.S. homeland. Why I think it's also interesting, the transparency and the pushback, is that politically, if the Trump administration were this raw political beast that they like to put out there, that they will do anything and say anything to get their agenda done, this is not in the interest of the White House to push back on this story. Just don't comment. Let it out there, because right now the Democrats are making sure that our Department of Homeland Security is shut down. They are not wanting to budge and reopen it. So I think even that is interesting, that the White House is committed to the transparency on this. Even when it could be used for their political advantage, they're getting the story straight.
Yeah, I think that's true. I think that it's more important to have transparency. Let the facts fall where they may. I think the Trump administration over and over and over is trying to be the most transparent administration. President Trump certainly briefs the media constantly. He's opening up, telling you what he thinks. The media is seeing the process. They're seeing him change his calculus and his thinking. That is a phenomenon that we should celebrate, because we certainly didn't get that from the Biden administration. We certainly didn't get that from the Obama administration. But having a president who briefs the president, briefs the media, talks to the media, shares his opinion freely, that is what, at least through my political experience, what the media has wanted all along. They're getting it from President Trump, and we should celebrate it.
Rick, we know that the Iranians have had a robust propaganda machine for a long time. They utilize platforms like X to get their message out with bots, with others. One thing that's been interesting to see how taken by the propaganda much of our mainstream media has been, whether it be CNN, even the way that they categorized multiple times in different ways the failed terror attack in New York, that famous tweet where it was just two teenagers from Philadelphia who could have enjoyed the day, but their lives changed forever when they accidentally threw, IEDs into a crowd. Or even this story this morning where the new Supreme Leader, a statement was read on Iranian TV purportedly from that leader. All of the mainstream media outlets this morning ran with Ayatollah makes first public statement and had to all quickly change their headlines to a statement has been released, because he has not been seen. There are reports that may not even be aware that he is the supreme leader. His wife was killed in an airstrike. The reports are he may have lost a leg as well as not be conscious from this. But they were so quick to run with that this new supreme leader's making statements. See, he's there. What's your take on that?
Well, look, we have this phenomenon, especially during wartime, that the media are racing to be first, not accurate. And they don't care about accuracy. They just want to be first. It's the whole world that we live in of clickbait. You want to put a headline out there, people click on it. You're now collecting money because they've clicked on it. And you don't really care if the headline is real. You just want eyes. That's why the headlines in the news are getting more outrageous every single day.
Yeah, Rick, I think that is something that, look, we struggle with sometimes here when I'm working with my team. I'll be honest, because part of that is true. You want to get the clicks, you want to click over, not just for direct, monetization, but because you want to bring people over to your website, and people are more attracted, sadly, as it has always been, as it has been since we used to walk through the grocery store and see the National Enquirer, they are more attracted to a crazy headline or to what could possibly be going on that may have a nugget of truth. Now, we fight that here. Of course, we want to make sure we give you the most accurate presentation. So why when you saw today, our headline was, it may be something you want to click on, because it's about the FBI warning about an Iranian threat to the state of California. And the sources were saying that. But again, that's what was happening. And since then, we've now seen the Trump administration come out and try to clarify this of what's happening. Of course, we are going to report it if we think that there is that happening. And Rick, look, again, as Will said, we need to keep our eyes open. We need to make sure, like I was in New York, and like I said, the streets were oddly quiet, and not people who are just clearly, especially right after that thwarted attack, the bomb that did not go off, everyone's kind of eyes are paying attention to what's going on, and certainly their ears.
Yeah, look, one of the things that we've learned over time is that the media are a business. And if you want to get accurate information, there needs to be a responsibility of the consumer of news. We need to have the responsibility to look at multiple sources in order to get the truth.
Yep, absolutely, Rick. Thank you so much for joining us. And look, as we head to this last segment of the day, I do want you to, call in if you want to be on the air, 1-800-684-3110. But take a minute, consider supporting the global work of the ACLJ. And of course, it supports all the work. It's the domestic work and the global work. We're just putting our eyes on these 7 days of global impact, showing you what we're doing around the world, whether it's through our European Center for Law and Justice, whether it's at the UN, whether it's ACLJ Jerusalem. The ACLJ is hard at work to make sure your voice is being heard and that lives are being changed around the world. We'll be right back.
Our job is to seek justice for the student who wants the Bible Club, to seek justice for those who are being killed for their faith today as we speak, all over the world, who are being imprisoned and tortured. And that is why the ACLJ is so excited to be a part of this effort.
It's really a great honor to be here and to have you all who are on the front line of this fight against Christian persecution that's happening across the globe.
I think one thing that shocks people the most is when you talk about religious persecution, people don't understand that Christianity is by far the largest religion that endures persecution around the world.
Events that happen in Africa, in Asia, seem so far away. It's not far away, it's on our doorstep.
I specifically work in the Democratic Republic of the Congo, and in the last 6 months, we have seen a 500% increase in the killing of Christians. And I think this is an indication that that's not just happening in this one country, but it's happening globally.
When it comes to protecting people of faith, religious liberty, one of the leading groups that have been doing that, not just recently, but for many years, is the ACLJ.
I just want to wholeheartedly endorse this effort. The work that's being done is really, I do believe it is for this moment. I believe it's providential. I think we all know, we all recognize this is a chief need, the persecution around the globe. And I believe and pray that God's going to bless this effort.
If you think this is something that is unrelated to you and to your life, that's not true. It's not about us. Ultimately, it's a war on God.
Right now, you can make a global impact. Go to aclj.org/global to have your tax-deductible gift doubled to defend persecuted Christians.
All right, we made it here, folks. Last segment of the day on a Thursday. We want you to be a part of the show. We still got two lines open at 1-800-684-3110, but many of you have been on hold for 30-plus minutes. I want to make sure we take care of you all first. Let's go to Brian, who's calling in New York on line 3. Brian, watching on YouTube. Go ahead.
I enjoy everything you guys do, to inform us properly. But I got a couple questions here, okay? We turn around, we have illegals in the country that were brought here by the Democrats, which I know they broke all of our laws to get them here. How come that is not considered treason due to the fact that many Americans have died from them being here from drugs, rapes, murders, the whole 9 yards? And my other question is, how do we rein in our politicians and media for lying to us?
Sure.
Can we put a law on the books to stop them?
Brian, there's actually a couple things I want to bring up. First, when it comes to holding people accountable for the border, there's so much to say there because they'll be like, well, it's not my fault. It's not your fault. It's not necessarily a specific person's fault. It's administration. It's whatever. Now, look, you do have to say the Trump administration came in. And a lot of people have issues with Kristi Noem and a lot of the issues she had there. She did a good job at the border. Fentanyl deaths down significantly, drug trafficking is significantly down. A lot of this has changed since this current Trump administration goes in. So you can criticize a lot of things that she did or that the Trump administration have done. And I understand no one's perfect. Everyone has issues. Every politician takes certain decisions, makes certain decisions I agree with, certain decisions I don't. I think they've done a good job at the border. Secondly, you talk about the media lying to you. There's a lot that can be done. And right now, the ACLJ is actually at the Supreme Court of the United States fighting for that on the individual basis. And look, I'd love to see more oversight in that as well. Of course, you don't want to limit freedom of speech. You don't want to limit freedom of journalism, freedom of independent thought. But when it comes to literally lying and just repeating it over and over again, this has been the problem the media has had, and it's been a big problem for those who claim any kind of public figure status. And what you could say is that now most of us have some sort of public figure status because we are publicly on social media, often commenting on some of the top issues of the day. Now that is coming to the Supreme Court of the United States, we hope, against CNN. That is what the ACLJ has been involved in because CNN repeated a lie over and over and over again, kept it going, even when they knew it was untrue. And now there may be a moment here where you could have laws being changed on the books.
That's right. And to that point, and talked about it a little bit yesterday, Brian, where CNN, their whole culture is of telling things in ways that are less than forthcoming.
Now, under new management, we'll see what happens
here.
We'll
see. But one of the big deals there is that under the First Amendment, the press and the freedom of religion, the freedom of speech, the freedom of assembly, all those are together. And one is not a super First Amendment, except for the press, because they have this little thing called New York Times versus Sullivan. It's a precedent that is outdated from a Supreme Court decision, and that is one of the things we are trying to push back on in this case. It's Dershowitz versus CNN, where it is going after this almost impenetrable wall that the press has around them from the Supreme Court decision. You contrast that also with, we have another case at the Supreme Court right now where Gavin Newsom was selectively going after churches and trying to get their money with COVID fines that were already overturned to the tune of $1.2 million. The freedom of religion doesn't have this supercharged, impenetrable wall of a First Amendment right. But what they were doing is targeting the churches. They were letting all the other businesses open. So it shows you the disparity of the treatment the press gets from that Supreme Court decision, and we still have to fight for churches.
Yeah, and listen, this is something that I'm happy we're doing because so many people have called me over the years and said, Logan, I need legal help. The press is just destroying me. They're essentially canceling me over something that did not happen, or is that a straight up lie? What can I do? You know how many heartbreaking conversations I've had to have where I go, absolutely nothing. There is nothing you can do. This is not worth the fight. Let the news cycle move on. Hopefully, the internet is short-lived. 48 hours from now, no one will be talking about you. That's been the best legal advice that we could give. But we're hoping that changes very soon. Let's go to Dion in Georgia on line 4. Dion, go ahead.
Good afternoon. How you doing today?
Hey, good.
Yes, I just want to talk about the war in Iran.
Yep.
And I think all Americans are brought in here to focus on force protection. You know, I think force protection is everybody's responsibility, not just the government, but everybody, every American citizen here and abroad. And my old saying, love all, trust a few, and do wrong to none.
Yeah, Dion, I think a lot of people see this war happening right now, or whatever you want to call it, military engagement that's happening right now. People that can see the long term can really start to see how this can be a big moment for freedom. Now, who knows how it plays out? We've all been through this before. We've all been burned before, okay? Let's just be honest. So questioning it is understandable. But when questioning it only comes from a political point of view, and I saw in your statement you wanted to say, like, it's not a right or a left issue right now. This is about hopefully changing the way the Middle East has always just been expected to be. Chaos. So not unlike the CNN ruling in a weird, different way, which is there's almost a precedent of deception that we've just accepted. We've accepted that there will be a genocide in Nigeria. We've accepted that there will be persecution all over the Middle East for people of any kind of different religion, different kind of beliefs, different kind of lifestyles. But the Trump administration has done what a lot of administrations threatened to do and never done, which is actually take some action. She may be for it or against it, but I think it's at least waiting to see. Like Will said, we're only at the end of week 2. It feels like it's been much longer.
They've already declared it a forever war, if you're listening to some of the people on the left that are against the action taken. But surprisingly, only coming up on week 2, on 2 full weeks.
We only got 2 minutes. John, you got about a minute. I'm sorry you've been on hold for so long, and I only can give you a minute, but that's what I could do. John, go ahead.
Yes. I was wondering, I know we had a drone go down near Iran, and our guys were 1 mile away from picking it up, and Obama said, stand down, leave it. Iran got that drone, then Obama and Biden gave them a bunch of money. Now all of a sudden they got drones to attack people with.
Well, interestingly, John, they kind of went further than the U.S. in the unmanned one-way drone technology. They really spent time researching it. Yes, that was a big embarrassment. And I even remember when the president asked Iran to return the drone, and they mocked him and paraded it. But interestingly, Iran, because of, and I would say a lot in part because of the sanctions relief from the JCPOA, from President Obama, developed that technology to a way that we had not. And we actually captured one of their drones on the battlefield in Ukraine, even though we didn't have people there, right? That was what we were told by Biden. But we got one of their drones and reverse engineered it and made it better. So we were using their technology against them with these Lucas drones that have been sent by the U.S. military, much better technology, but based off of their airframe. And that's been doing a lot of the U.S. work over there.
Started off with drones, wrapped it up with drones. That's going to do it for today's broadcast. We want you to be a part of the ACLJ. And look, all month, your donations are doubled, but this week we are focusing on the 7 days of global impact. Our worldwide work is unbelievable. I wish I could show you all of it. I wish, honestly, you would connect with all of it. Sometimes it's tough. It's a tough sell to understand what's going on outside of our borders, but understand how important it is to the people that we are helping. So I encourage you to support the work of the ACLJ today and double your impact, dollar for dollar. Help defend Christians around the world at aclj.org.